Oh, shit.
Quick, the battery.
Come on. My bike is burning up.
Hey, what's losing a bike or two, huh?
What? Then there's nothing wrong with me using yours, right?
I said that out loud, did I?
Yeah, you did.
By the way, your bike's still on fire.
Oh, man. Oh.
Oh my God. Welcome, everybody. I am your host, Robert.
I have to introduce myself properly now, so I cannot be Captain Chaos today. I am Giancarlo, aka Gio, known as Captain Chaos, another host.
And from down here in Australia, I'm Ray, also known as the Mad Scientist.
But we can complain, right? Captain Chaos always brings the chaos. Doesn't matter what he does.
Hey, look, his system is working. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I'll stop.
Yeah, peacemaker. Robert's a peacemaker. He disrupted the chaos.
I don't think I can ever do that. You can go against the current of the chaos.
Speaking of going against the current of the chaos, what have you guys been watching in sci-fi this week?
Aside from a lot of anime, I've been watching
with my cool wife that watched Star Trek with me.
Aside from Star Trek, obviously, by the way, we're in season 4. I've been watching a couple really interesting videos on Dust, and one that really called my attention was a 13-minute movie called The Light Game. And all I can say is it talks about AI. And
The Light Game?
The Light Game.
Was it truly good?
Well, it was a lie. But it was really interesting, especially when we're talking about AI, and that actually is in the future of AI. So if you guys had a chance to look it up, I mean, it's only 13 minutes long. Look it up on YouTube and let me know what you think. But that was really, really interesting. I think I have a lot to say about that 13-minute movie.
I actually watch a couple of movies from Dust too. But what I've been rewatching a lot now, Matrix.
Oh, nice.
I think I rewatched the trilogy twice this week.
It's one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the most rewatchable movies.
Should we push that one up the list?
I want to. We got to bring Miguel.
I think we should plan that for next week.
Let's do it.
But this week, what have I been watching this week? Ghost in the Shell, Standalone Chronicle 2045 on Netflix. The animation's a little bit I wouldn't call it necessarily subpar. It's just a style that's quite computer generated, so it's got that sort of uncanny valley thing happening. But the way the story's put together, and it reminds me of what we're doing this week as well. It has a lot of political intrigue and social commentary, which I really like. So it really gives a lot of depth to the story.
Idiocracy.
No, not in that direction. No, it's way more serious. Like, you know, it's that sort of juxtaposition of I'm watching something that's animated, and my God, it's more serious than you know, a lot of standard TV shows. So
serious, like Cat Planet Cuties, right?
Yeah,
no, like Black Bible.
I can see where this is going. I'll just walk away now.
Don't. And I repeat, every time Captain Chaos brings it up, I repeat, do not look it up on the internet. Don't. The Legend of the Overtheme. Do not search it.
There you go. Robert just made it easier for me. The Legend of the Overtheme.
Do not look at it. Do not watch that movie. Don't complain to me when you find it.
And thank you, me.
You know, I told you, Captain Chaos, you can't stop the chaos. It's impossible. You know?
Yeah, they should watch something nicer, like redo of Healer.
Yeah.
Have either of you guys watched that?
Nope.
know?
Okay.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. Since the topic is cyberpunk, I was playing cyberpunk the other day. You know that there's like brain dances or porn and things like that. And you cannot watch them, but like you get to buy the things and see like the titles. And I was reading a title that got me what cracked up, man. It's called No Legs, No Arms, No Problem.
That's horrible.
Unfortunately, Robert, it's a whole genre.
Oh my god.
I mean, it saves on rope if they don't have limbs.
No arms, no legs, no problem.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this
a
is
whole
one of
genre,
many
and
reasons
it's
why
disturbing.
you should play cyberpunk.
I mean, look, if you got cybernetic limbs, you could just like take them off, and you've got the same effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that might be my cue to go to the next segment. What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
go now. Do not delay.
Or it's too
Do
late.
not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Here we go. We are Science Fiction Redneck.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is SciFi.
And if you have listened to this show for the first time and you want to know what that is a hashtag that we have called This Is Sci-Fi. So what it does, if you are a fan and you have a love for sci-fi and you have that one particular or multiple sci-fi loves that you can't wait to talk to people about, you want to do is you want to follow that hashtag and you want to post your love and talk. You'll be surprised how, number one, you'll find people that have never seen your thing and find it interesting enough that they will give it a try, and maybe that might become their love as well. And you have other people that have seen what you love and just like you can't wait to watch or talked about something that they love as much as you do. You might find people talking on the hashtag about Babylon 5. And you'll might be interested enough to watch it and join the conversation. And in the other hand, if you are a creator, it could be a podcaster, you could be a director, a writer. It doesn't matter. You have that one thing that you call your baby. This is a product that you created that you love. You want to go ahead and follow that hashtag and post your creativity into that and share with the world. The whole idea for the hashtag This Is Sci-Fi is to create a location where all sci-fi lovers could get together and talk about the things that we love the most in sci-fi. So if you are like us, join us and follow that hashtag. I don't know if you guys have been on that hashtag lately. You let me know if you have some things that you want to point out. I do have a couple of things that I want to mention on the hashtag. Like if you guys have not heard of the podcast That Wouldn't Die, you should just download it, right? I listen to the podcast every week.
They're awesome.
They're awesome. We had them on our show twice and we have so much fun. So we still got to plan and see how we're going to bring them over again. But they're always very active in the This Is a Sci-Fi hashtag. So you go into Twitter and you type in under search, This Is Sci-Fi. And usually what I do is I go to latest, because you have the top latest people. I go to latest and it gives you the latest post. And you wouldn't be surprised to see them all over the latest post. They're always very active. But why I am mentioning them is because they I think one of their episodes is about an IP that I love, and we actually covered in this show. So if you haven't downloaded yet, you want to go down to our back catalog, scroll down, and find The Last Starfighter, and listen to our episode on that. It is one of my absolute loves on sci-fi. And after I post that and engage in the conversation in the hashtag This Is Sci-Fi, I realized that I'm not alone. And that's the beauty about the hashtag, is that you discover that you're basically not alone in that one thing that you love the most. They recorded an episode on it, and I invite everybody to go and listen to that as well. And of course, they also did an episode on John Carter, which is our number 2 episode on season 1 for Science Fiction Remnant.
Yep.
So that is the very first episode where Captain Chaos was not Captain Chaos, and it was not a host. It was just a guest of the show. So I invite you all.
It was proto chaos.
I should have seen the signs, but I refused.
The Last Starfighter was an awesome movie. It really hit me hard when I watched it back in the day, because that whole thing of I love computer games, and this one's really cool, and the graphics are cutting edge. Not anymore, but they were at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the first sci-fi movies that had full CGI space battles.
Yes. It's incredible to think that was like state of the art when it came out. And right now you look at it, it's so
Vector graphics.
But yeah, computer graphics.
They've said for decades they were going to do a sequel, and I've been waiting. Oh,
they're like, I think I heard they even have a cast, and they have the but it's just, you never heard anything from it. Apparently what they're doing, the last I heard, because you know that those rumors could mean anything, is that they are taking on from from the kid that grew up, and he is the last starfighter. So they're gonna do that angle where they follow on where he left off, and there might be some reminiscing on what happened in the past. But again, it's one of those things that I really want to see some official announcements. There had been some leaked artwork, and I think I posted that at the time that we recorded The Last Starfighter. And someone collected those and made a video, and it was really, really cool. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I mean, they could so easily have them, have a retro game cabinet sale, and somebody buys it and wheels it into their home and sets it up and turns it on, and they have a gathering of their friends, and they're all playing it, and then the party winds down, and then the machine's just sitting there, and then it sort of lights up and starts sending messages off, and then somebody rocks up, the guy who was recruiting rocks up and starts recruiting some friends, maybe 2 or 3 of them who got the highest scores. It'd be so easy to write a sequel to this.
Oh yes,
hell, I could write a sequel.
Hey, there you go. Why don't you write a 5,000 word sequel?
A treatment,
something short. Like, what would you call that? A short story? It's like 4 minutes to read, and we'll post it on our website. How about that?
Call it The Next Starfighter.
There you go. So I don't know if you guys, that being said, not sure if you guys are aware, we are writing on our website. So all you have to do is you want to go into sciencefictionremnant.com, and you want to click on blog in the menu. There are a collection of articles that are releasing every Sunday morning. That's morning Eastern time. Just so you guys can, especially what time is it in Norway? Right now,
No way.
I gotta look it up. But
No
yeah,
way.
It'd
So-
be after midnight, I think.
yeah. So when you wake up, the article will be there for all the people in Norway. And by the way, thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate it. The
You
article.
say thank you.
It's
Nick.
Tax Kalduha.
There you go.
Norwegian.
Thank you. The article that came out today, it's called "Unveiling the Enigma of Time Dilation and Faster Than Light Travel." So basically, I can read the excerpt so you guys know what it's all about. It says, "Prepare for an extraordinary journey through the depth of time and space as we unravel the mysteries of time dilation and faster than light travel." In this captivating article, we will explore the scientific foundations, delve into captivating science fiction examples, and unravel key concepts while providing clear explanations. Get ready to embark on an intellectual adventure that challenges perceptions and ignites the imagination. Brace yourself for an intriguing exploration of time dilation that will keep you informed and entertained. So hopefully you guys like that article. We are posting a link to the article on our Discord channel. So if you want to start, if you want to continue the conversation, you read the article and you have something to say, you can join our Discord channel, go into that post inside Discord, and we can start a conversation. Every article that you see on sciencefictionremnant.com is actually being it has its own link in Discord for conversation. So I invite everybody to join up and let me know what you think. If you like the article, or if you want to see something that I haven't written about. Also, if you're not familiar, I'm taking guest writers or guest contributors. Our last article, called "Runaway and the Immersible Future," was actually a contributor, RoboPulp, that wrote that for us. So that's actually live on the website. So, and if you don't want to miss an article and you want reminders, you can go to the website and you can sign up for the newsletter. It's actually, if you go to sciencefictionremnant.com and you scroll slightly down to the right, you'll find a form where all you have to do is put in your email, click submit, and you're done.
So security, credit card, and don't forget your verification code.
And your social security number. Can't forget that.
Well, but if you want to do something nice, it doesn't have to be that. You could actually join up and buy us a coffee. We are actually at Buy Me a Coffee. There is a link in the description, and if you're watching our YouTube, you can just scan the QR code on the screen. And also, we have a Patreon, so you can just go in again. It's in the description, and if you're listening or watching on YouTube, you can just scan the QR code on the screen. So, do you guys have anything you want to point out from the "This is Sci-Fi" hashtag for this week? Or, I don't know, but I mean, I'm always on it. Always
I
on
want to
it.
remember everybody, if you want to find good conversation about things that you love about sci-fi, just type "This is Sci-Fi" on Twitter, and I assure you, you're gonna have a good time.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So, if we don't have anything else to add, we can move on to the next topic.
Shout out.
Well, this is not a topic. This is a segment, but I want to remember everybody if I
I
start
was
this.
trying to throw you off, man.
I know. You can't. You can't, man.
You can't chaos the chaos. I'm sorry.
Sorry, man. We are members of the Blind Knowledge Network podcast. Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. See, you throw me off. Bro.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
The Blind Platform Knowledge Network.
the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network.
The Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Go and check them out at blindknowledge.com. They have a great variety of content creators. I'm sure that you can find something that you can like in there. Go and see them there on all social medias. So there shouldn't be difficulty to find them. For our first shout out, actually, to a dear friend of ours, Deep Horizon Brave Ghost World. Thanks for joining us today on the watch party, man. He's
Yeah,
a great supporter of us. He's always active in our Discord,
yeah, and
and we always love having us.
I want to mention that you guys you guys are missing out. So just set aside Sundays. We usually do a watch party. So if you join up our Discord, and just be on the lookout, or if you are curious, just reach out to us and ask us. Hey, one, at what time is a watch party? At when is a watch party? We do the
Mhm.
watch party at and on Sundays. So it's a great opportunity for you guys to watch something with us, and we can have a conversation, live right on the spot. So just join up on Discord, and it was a great viewing because we were watching the topic of this episode on the watch party today. So, sorry to hijack your segment, but I just wanted to point out how
That's fine,
cool it
man. I don't
is.
mind that you do part of my job.
Go ahead.
You just can't leave it alone, can you, Robert?
No,
Yeah.
can't.
Next one is Grand Moff Duke, PhD ESQ, and his handle is Sean Duke, and also Skiffy and Fenty. Go and check them out. Great podcast, actually.
Yeah, Sean Duke is from Skiffy and Fanti. Great podcasts. They have deep conversations about science fiction topics. I lately they've been doing a lot of books, but they do everything, and it's a great podcast. And they're I love their engagement with us. So if you Skiffy and Fanti, if you are listening, I'm still open to have you on the show. So all you got to do is tell me the topic and the day you want to record, and we can record it and have you feature in our show.
Hell yeah. And last but not least, one of our dear supporters of all time. She's always engaging with us, Kelly Santiorgi. And her tag is Antiporo.
Thank you,
And
Kelly.
that'll be all for today.
Awesome. So that we're going to move on to the next segment.
The outer remnant.
My turn.
But I was going to ask the chaos.
Yeah,
What?
well, it's not just this podcast that has chaos, because there's a whole bunch of chaos over at Radio Chaos, which is the Elite Army live stream channel. And this week was episode 166, Jashigan, the man, the myth, and how will he be handled in the sequel? So obviously, to the people who've read it in the manga, Jashigan is the main antagonist in the Motorball arc, which is basically where they were starting at the end of the first movie. So we were talking about how Jashigan as the major antagonist would be covered. He's not an enemy per se, but he is an antagonist as in rival on the track. So we got a little glimpse of him in the first movie, and we were sort of expanding on that and how they might bring the way he's presented in the manga into the movie. So that was an interesting discussion, and we had a lot of fun with it. And I was a bit cheeky with the thumbnail too.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. So I always ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Are we ready? Because I feel like I'm not ready. This is such an iconic thing.
Well, Robert, you know the drill.
It's a powerhouse, right? This is groundbreaking animation, and it's I can say that because if you hear people that know what Akira is and never seen it, that has to say something. It was released in 1988, and it's renowned. It's how groundbreaking animation techniques, the detail of the artwork, and in my opinion, it was pivotal for anime or animation from Japan back into the, I want to say the United States, but technically the world. I might be wrong in saying this, but in my opinion, this actually put anime in the map for the entire world. And I think that after this movie came out, it completely changed what the animation is, and brought up interest into that type of media to the point where
Would you
we have it right now.
say that this movie changed the genre of cyberpunk as is?
Well, it actually played in the cyberpunk arena, and it was a very important part of the cyberpunk, because of how iconic this movie is. That's just that's just my opinion, but not sure what you guys, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, I'm just going back and rewatching it and reminding myself about it. I was like, wow, the artwork, the style, it's not that sort of massive-eyed Mo sort of anime feeling. This is gritty, and the people aren't pretty. The people are rough, and it fits the style perfectly. You've got the scientists who are just doing shit because it's interesting, which I thought was a bit risque in a scientific fashion.
I was wondering, Ray, if you were in a situation like the scientist, would you be concerned that you were gonna die, or you'll be like, "Oh, this is amazing! This is amazing!"
I'd have been out of there. Personal safety is number one, man. Work health and safety. You've got to be on top of that shit.
Well, you have to, Captain Chaos, you have to ask the right question, right? So you're asking him as a scientist, but you got to ask him as a mad scientist. That answer might differ.
Yeah, well, you'd have to be a little bit unhinged to hang around when you know what's coming, because it's happened once already. It's like, learn from history, bitches.
Yeah. At the end of the time for the scientist, I was like, "You got served."
Yeah, pretty much.
He was asking for it. Like, he was too busy with his printouts. Like, fuck the printouts. Get in the driver's seat. Get the fuck out of there. But going back a minute to the impact of the anime, it's like it was gritty. It was really solid. There was none of this sort of baddie bad guys and goody good guys. It reminded me a lot of Gumu, the Battle Angel Alita, in that everything's a shade of grey. Nobody's a good guy. There were plenty of bad guys, but they weren't all completely bad. But they were human, and that gave them a whole lot of depth. And I thought that the show really hangs together as a cyberpunk masterpiece. And even to this day, like, you go, 1988, was it crappy? I was like, no. It wasn't crappy. In fact, it was better than a lot of anime you'll see today, because it wasn't formulaic. It stands on its own, and it really packs a punch.
Hey, to add to that, to what you just said, this movie has this unique visual that has been, they tried to replicate it, but you still today, I want to venture and say today you can't find anything like this.
The closest thing that I've seen in recent years is Cyberpunk 2077 on Netflix, but still, it's cutesy in places. The character designs and stuff are Mo, and there's no Mo in this. The girls are skanky. The girls are skanky. There's no other way to describe it.
It makes it more real. In Akira, You have you have how real people are, how real people look. And Edge Runners, it's a version of which actually makes sense for cyberpunk. If you think about it, the girls want to be beautiful, the guys want to be strong, and they're going to do that even if it at the cost of losing biological components and replacing them with mechanical mechanical components. And yet Akira is still cyberpunk. You don't see this as much, but you see reality. You don't see beautiful, like you don't see all girls are beautiful. You see girls how they really are.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because you don't see that nowadays. Nowadays, everything has to be doled up. For perfect example, what you said, the Edge Runner, the cyberpunk Edge Runners is a perfect example. It's very greedy, just like Kira, but everything is doled up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that a lot of Edge Runners had, like, the characters had money, so they could doll themselves up. The characters in this were either too busy doing their thing, and what I mean by their thing is like the military leader. He was just an imposing guy, the colonel, and he was trying to save the city, even though he hated it, but he had a job to do, and to the point where he just took over. He performed a military coup d'etat because it's what was necessary to try and save the city from what was coming. But like, he was well dressed, but he didn't give a crap what he looked like. And there was all the fat rich guys who were running the place, and then you go down on the streets and there was just a bunch of kids fighting it out on motorcycles and stuff. They didn't have the money. They spent their money on their bikes. They didn't spend the money on themselves. So they didn't look particularly good. They were just average folks that had fallen off motorcycles at high speed with no helmets, because nobody could afford a helmet because they spent all their money on their bikes. So they didn't look so crash hot. But I mean, even Tetsuo's girlfriend, she wasn't a looker. She was a nice girl, but she was pretty damn average.
Yeah.
It wasn't about everybody looking mo and sexy. It was gritty.
Well, and I really, really appreciate that because, that's real life. Everyone has, there's a phrase out there that says, it's actually in Spanish. I don't know if I can translate it very well, but colors are made for the taste. And let me explain what that means. So if I ask right now, right?
For each taste, there's a color.
Yeah. So let me ask,
You can
Captain Chaos, what is your favorite color?
Mine? I got two favorite colors.
Okay, there you go. So you have two favorite colors. Ray,
purple.
What is your favorite color?
Purple.
There you go. My purple is my favorite color too. But anyways, here's what I'm trying to...
So the three of us like purple.
Here's where I'm going
royalty.
with this. Here's where I'm going with this, right? There are people, and this goes for male and female alike, that look in themselves in the mirror and they don't feel pretty enough, and they think they're not pretty, or they're average, right? It has been my personal opinion, and this is something that I learned later in life, that I wish I would have learned earlier, is that no one is average. It's a point of view. It's a perception. So there's going to be someone out there that finds you horrid, finds you horrible, finds you ugly. And on the same hand, there is going to be someone out there that finds you a model, finds you completely beautiful. It's a perception. But the problem is, humanity tends to listen more to negativity.
I have a quote for that.
So you can find 10 people that find you beautiful, but you're going to listen to that one person that says you're ugly.
Mhm.
And this is what I gather from Akira, right? The fact that they
Everybody's
paint,
ugly there.
well, it's a perception.
It's messy.
It's a perception. They are how they are supposed to be. No one was born dolled up. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that's what I really appreciate about this, and how you don't find many films. Some, I mean, they are there, right? But not many actually take on this topic where just be what you are, human. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe I know I'm overthinking, but
Really? You've never done that before.
I just wanted to say that before we go into the plot.
Seems fair.
Oh, there's a plot.
Oh, there is a plot. The plot.
And I want to finish that thought that you were working on, Robert,
Mhm.
with one phrase.
Go ahead.
Comparison is the killer of joy. And we always comparing, even our own looks and our own perception of ourselves.
Yeah.
So until we stop doing that, it's gonna be difficult to be content with ourselves.
Yeah, because and again, that's plays into the fact that you find someone that tells you this thing about you is not right or is wrong. And then what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to change yourself. You can't change yourself. You are who you are.
Mhm.
And I can guarantee you there's someone out there that loves you how you are and doesn't want to see anything changed about you. And that's one of the hardest things to comprehend. And I admit it because I thought otherwise when I was younger. And again, this context I learned later in life. And it makes sense. It's just a perception. Just like when I ask you, what is your favorite color? Most people will have a different color, and you'll wonder, like, oh, I like black. And then you're like, in your head, you're thinking, I like blue. Why he likes black? This seems boring. But that's the taste. That's what this person likes. So just like we have likes, that's exactly how this whole thing plays out. Now, our resident math scientist is showing us something on screen. So for all of you out there who are actually watching this on YouTube, you could see, but let's leave our, I'm going to let our math scientist explain for all of us who are actually listening to the pod.
Well, this is a shot from the movie showing when Tetsuo and his girlfriend pissed off on Kaneda's motorcycle. That's that low-riding red one, science fiction-y looking motorcycle. And it's very cyberpunk if you look at this picture about, the crustiness of the world, how it's all... like there's big buildings in the background, big shiny buildings, but down on street level, everything's old and dirty and sort of industrial looking, and there's posters and scroll and stuff all over the walls. But then you've got this shiny motorcycle that's like the one shiny thing in the entire picture, and then but what the main thing that I wanted to show in this one is, look at those two faces. Look at the characters' faces. So you've got Tetsuo and his girlfriend, and they are not Mo. There is no Mo in this anime, pretty much at all.
I am so sorry. You're probably getting distracted with me laughing and Gio laughing.
Yeah, I am. I'm totally. Okay, tell me what you're laughing about.
Before you continue, so you can get to the topic, because I want to hear what you have to say, but I want you to let Captain Chaos explain.
It's Robert's fault, Ray. It's not my fault, Ray. It's Robert's fault.
What did he say?
He was asking, he wanted his wife to bring him a beer. He texts me, hey, can I have a beer? And I say, yes, papi.
I'm so sorry.
Do we need to start a new hashtag? Beer text fail.
Maybe you can have a beer.
And on related news, a podcast was taken down by a wrong text.
Oh Jesus!
Oh God!
Yeah, we have to go there because
Now
that
you had to call me baby for the rest of the show, Robert.
Oh God. Okay. Moving on. Sorry.
Moving on,
Come
sorry.
on, come on, get with the times. It's
Robert.
Bay, all right? It's Bay, not baby. But yeah, my point is, if you look at the character designs here, there's no Mo at all. It's gritty. Their eyes aren't huge. Their faces aren't pretty. They're just street punks, and everybody's normal. I mean, it's not. The characters aren't made to look beautiful. They're made to look.
I mean, come on. I watched the movie and I feel beautiful.
By comparison. But yeah, I mean, it's different. This is different, and it works for this genre, especially when you get to the giant amoeboid thing. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the writer of this, now I've got to remember the guy's name.
This one, Tetsuo.
Katsuhiro Otomo wrote Akira, wrote/drew Akira, and he's sort of gritty cyberpunk design, which sort of permeates the way this anime has been drawn and colored, and it really works for this story. And that's what I was getting.
Everybody has a big forehead.
Well, I think that's just Tetsuo.
Everybody, bro. Show me somebody that doesn't have a big forehead.
Canada. Oh God, I got some Wrath of Cans vibes. Okay, so before we move on, let's let our mad scientists mention or actually read out the plot.
The plot. In the far future of 2019. Hang on a second.
Damn,
I don't remember this happening, but anyway. Following a world war triggered by a sudden destruction of Tokyo on July 16, 1988. Hang on a second. I don't remember that either.
Maybe I can read it like this.
You could. I don't have a voice changer.
Go ahead. I'll figure out how to put it on your feed. Let's see.
Neo Tokyo is plagued by corruption, anti-government protests, terrorism, and gang violence. During a violent rally, a hot-headed Shotaro Kaneda leads his vigilante Bosuzuku gang, the Capsules, against a rival clown gang. Kaneda's best friend, Tetsuo Shima, inadvertently crashes his motorcycle into Takahashi, an Esper. Esper means somebody who has ESP powers, who escaped from a governmental laboratory with the aid of a resistance organization. Assisted by his fellow Esper Masaru, Japan's self-defense force Colonel Shikishima recaptures Takahashi, has Tetsuo hospitalized, and arrests the Capsules. While being interrogated by the police, Kaneda meets Kai, an activist with a resistance movement, and tricks the authorities into releasing her with his gang. At a secret government facility, Shikishima is the head of research, and his head of research, Dr. Onishi, discovers that Tetsuo possesses powerful psychic abilities similar to Akira, the Esper responsible for Tokyo's 1988 destruction. Esper Kyoko forewarns Shikishima of Neo Tokyo's impending destruction, but the city's parliament dismisses Shikishima's concerns, leading him to consider killing Tetsuo to prevent another cataclysm. Excuse me. Meanwhile, Tetsuo escapes from the hospital, steals Kaneda's motorcycle. He does this several times. He must really like it. And tries fleeing Neo-Tokyo with his girlfriend Kaori. But the clowns ambush him. The capsules rescue Tetsuo and Kaori, but Tetsuo suffers intense headaches and hallucinations and is re-hospitalized. Overhearing their plan to rescue Tetsuo and the other Espers, Kaneda joins Kei's resistance cell. At the hospital, the Espers try killing Tetsuo via hallucinations, but the attempt is thwarted. A frustrated Tetsuo searches for them, killing any orderlies and militiamen blocking his path. The resistance group infiltrates the hospital, and Kyoko draws Kei and Kaneda into Shikishima and the Esper's futile attempts to stop Tetsuo. Kyoko tells Tetsuo that Akira, located in cryogenic storage beneath the Olympic Stadium's construction site, could help Tetsuo with his powers. After rejecting everyone around him, especially Kaneda, Tetsuo flees the hospital to hunt for Akira. So basically, Tetsuo was that guy in the group that, you know, everybody picked on, but Kaneda was always rescuing him, and he really hated it. So he finally got, you know, strength of his own, Esper powers, and he was pushing Kaneda away, not wanting to be rescued anymore. He wanted to stand on his own 2 feet. Yeah. Kaneda fights Tetsuo with a laser rifle, which is damn cool. And Shikishima fires an orbital weapon at him because, you know, nothing says over OP like firing an orbital energy weapon at a kid, right? Hey, what's this light?
I mean, after everything they tried on him.
Yeah. Okay, we've got portable laser weapons. Oh, he's deflecting them. Okay, let's OP this thing. Orbital laser weapon. Yeah, okay. While the latter destroys his arm, so the sole laser weapon system in orbit destroys his arm, neither is able to stop him. Shikishima and Kaori approach the stadium where Tetsuo, now with a robotic arm that he created with his Esper powers, is in great pain and losing control over his powers. Kaori tries restraining Tetsuo while Shikishima unsuccessfully offers to heal his injuries and help control his abilities. Kaneda again fights Tetsuo, who, weakened from the missing arm, mutates into a gigantic mass of flesh, engulfing Kaneda and killing Kaori. Poor Kaori, she really just had a rough time.
That was rough.
The Espers revive Akira to stop the growing mass. Reuniting with his friends, Akira creates a singularity, drawing Tetsuo and Kaneda into another dimension. Yes, it gets funky. The Espers teleport Shikishima to a safe distance as the singularity destroys Neo-Tokyo in a mirror of Tokyo's previous destruction, and they agree to rescue Kaneda, knowing that they will not return to this dimension as a result. In the singularity, Kaneda experiences Tetsuo and the Esper's childhoods, including his and Tetsuo's friendship from the Esper's psychic training before Tokyo's destruction. The Espers return Kaneda to Neo-Tokyo, informing him that Akira will take Tetsuo to safety and that Kai is developing psychic powers. Onishi witnesses the birth of a universe, but is killed in his lab's destruction. After consuming most of Neo-Tokyo, the singularity disappears and water floods the crater left in its place. Mourning Tetsuo's loss, Kaneda discovers that Kai and Kei have survived, 2 different people. They ride off into the ruins while Shikishima watches the sunrise. At an unspecified plane of reality, Tetsuo introduces himself and triggers the creation of a universe, finally transcending the limitations of his human existence. Roll credits.
Wow.
And that awesome music.
Well, I this is something that Steve Horizon Brave was actually mentioning on our Discord watch party. It's the fact the music. The music is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I would have to say I'm going to mention this, and you guys let me know if you think this is true or not. But I think a sign of a good score on a film is where the score is playing and you don't realize it's actually playing because it's actually part of the storytelling mechanism. So unless you're paying attention, because music is the best way that you can control emotions. And the music that was played was perfect for the story because it made you feel what the writer or the director wanted you to feel in the moment that he wanted you to feel with the score. And the score is fantastic. Now, what do you guys think? I mean, I guess we could start with Gio since he was in the watch party, and then we can move on to Ray for an outside view of my
You're
comment.
the outsider, Ray.
Standing on the outside.
I mean, I think that I've spoken about this before. It reminds me a lot of when we watched Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
That's what great soundtrack is made. It sucks you into the storytelling. It wraps through you. So when you're watching, it's like you don't feel like you're that person watching the TV anymore. You're inside of it already, experiencing what you're seeing. That's what great soundtrack does. And I think that this is just one more demonstration of it. And like I say, I think that this movie has been instrumental of what cyberpunk is looked at today.
Awesome. So, what do you think, Ray, on my comment? About...
Do you even think, right?
Yes, I do think occasionally. There's the odd synapse that fires. Yeah, well, no. When all of the memory, like I had to rewatch this because I hadn't seen it in like 20 years. But there's always a couple of things about each IP that sticks with you. That's sort of like your marker for that IP. And for this one, the music is one of those markers. Whenever I hear the word Akira, I immediately start hearing those. I don't know what the name of the instrument is, but it's kind of like a xylophone, but the I don't even know what they're called, but the bits that you hit with the hammers, the keys or whatever they are, they're made of bamboo, and it's got that particular ring to it. That it's sort of like a hollowy, sort of light woody sound, and it's very specific to this instrument. I don't even know what the instrument is, but it's the thing that I always hear in my head whenever somebody mentions the name Akira. That the music just starts playing in my head. And it's one of the things that's tied in my mentality to this movie is the soundtrack, and it's very similar to Ghost in the Shell, the original Ghost in the Shell movie, because that had some really iconic music in it as well. And when I hear the Ghost in the Shell, I immediately start hearing the iconic soundtrack to that movie. I've got one of those brains that orders everything by their soundtracks. But yeah, both of these shows really have emotional soundtracks that are quite unique, and so it's one of the things that's tied in my head to it. But also, the cyberpunk aesthetic in this movie is another one of those things that is really tied to this movie in my head. And of course, the red motorcycle, Kaneda's red motorcycle, which you see on all of the advertising material for the movie, all the T-shirts, everything for this movie has the red bike on it because it is iconic.
It's so iconic. I mean, I even seen multiple videos where someone actually recreated the bike in real life. And man, it's so iconic, and I don't think there's a bike lover out there that wouldn't love a version of this bike, or to own a version of this bike. It's so iconic.
And I mean, even in the movie, Tetsuo's sitting there on Kaneda's bike talking about it and about how, it's got ceramic cross-torque engines and all this sort of, all this sort of cyberpunky guff about the tech, because he's salivating over it as well. It's meant to be that iconic piece of technology that everybody wants and everybody salivates over. And Kaneda's got it. It makes everybody jealous.
He said computer control anti-lock brakes. I want to move on and talk a little about something that Captain Chaos brought up about this movie. And that is the influence that this movie has, the heavy influence this movie has on an entire genre, not only science fiction, but cyberpunk. So there's a couple of bullet points that I have prepared, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. And I'll probably just go one by one, and then after that, I'm going to point out what IPs have been influenced by this, but this IP basically. It's one of the things is how it sets the dystopian future. And remember, this is a 1988 film, right? So Akira represents a dark and dystopian version of the futuristic Tokyo called Neo Tokyo. If you watch enough anime, you kind of heard this term multiple times through various different animes, especially those that deal with that are basically sci-fi or deal with the future. In this version, Neo Tokyo is plagued by corruption, social unrest, and a stark wealth divide. This greedy urban landscape became a defining characteristic of the cyberpunk storytelling, where futuristic cities are often depicted as oppressive and decaying. So, do you agree or disagree, or what are your thoughts on that comment?
I fully agree.
Yeah, totally agree.
It feels like the government has total control of what is going on at a social political level in the country. Another curious thing that I found is that in the whole movie, Japan was segregated from the world. Like, this seemed to be a world issue, but only Japan was dealing with it.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it got me curious.
Well, it's very interesting you mentioned that because, well, it does make sense. So this is a Japanese IP. Obviously, I mean it's centered in Japan, and you could see if you watch enough anime, or not necessarily anime. If you watch a lot of Japanese movies and TV shows, it could be anime or not. When you deal with things like that, it could be, you can take Godzilla for example. It's always an issue. It's a global issue. Yet either Japan is the only one dealing with it, or the only one that could actually resolve, depending on which IP you watch.
Do you remember watching Ajin?
Yes, I do.
In Ajin, for example, we had that, but you have governments from other countries getting involved.
Yes.
Also in Ghost in the Shell, you had the same thing, but you get other governments getting involved because it's an issue that can be contained on a country.
Yeah. So I guess I can move on to the next one.
Just before you do, I was going to say that we kind of look at the biggest thing that we have in our culture of our country, and then that's the thing that gets taken down to show that what's happening is bigger than we are, bigger than anything that we have. And Tokyo is the place that gets trashed in this movie. Multiple movies from the US, it's either New York or Washington that gets trashed because they're the biggest cities, the biggest concentrations of power. And the writers or the filmmakers are showing that power is nothing in the face of this overwhelming force. So basically you're scaling the force of your happenings in your story against things that people understand, which is the biggest city in your area. So Tokyo gets trashed by Godzilla, Tokyo gets trashed by Akira, New York gets trashed by Godzilla when Godzilla gets done by the West. It's you pick your biggest thing and you drag it down and you say this power is bigger than us, and that's basically what you're saying in that sort of a situation. But the cultural impact, I'm just reading through the Akira wiki, which has some really interesting stuff in it. There's this thing called the Akira slide, which is when they're having the bike fight and Kaneda overshoots on his super duper red motorcycle, and he slides out from under the camera sideways on his bike, pulls to a stop with the smoke and the sparks and everything, and then turns and heads back under the camera to go back to the fight. And apparently that is known as the Akira slide, and it's been used in Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teen Titans, Star Wars Clone Wars. It's been used all over the place since 1988. It's one of those iconic things, awesome sort of actiony things. So it was in Ready Player One, X-Men Origins Wolverine. So it gets used all over the place.
I'm gonna ask this, right? I'm gonna ask this. If you're listening to the show and you've never seen Akira, it is possible, right? It is possible. You've never seen Akira, it is possible. I'm gonna say that out there.
We've got to have a segment of our audience that doesn't watch anime.
Exactly. Well,
anime is for kids.
Even oh my God. Even if this is an anime, right? It's still an iconic film. Like, I know people that they still hate anime to this day, but they love Akira, right?
Brought to you by Orosuke.
It is an iconic film, right? But I'm going to say this. If you have never seen Akira, I want you to go ahead and watch it. And then let me know if the Akira slide becomes all of a sudden evident in everything you have ever seen prior. Because, I mean, we're talking about the Akira slide, the iconic motorcycle slide in this film. And if you've never seen that scene, you're never going to appreciate it because it seems like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And someone that has seen this film knows this because you're like, it's there. But if you've never seen the film, you've seen it and you really, you don't pay mind to it. I mean, you've seen it in every film. It's like, well, at least all the films that I've seen have that in common, but you don't know why until you watch this.
This is the source.
Yes, I just have to say that. So I'm curious. So if you are one of those few, reach out. I want to know.
I don't normally back Rotten Tomatoes as a reliable place for commentary, but I do agree with them on this one. Akira got 91% based on 53 reviews, And the critical consensus reads, Akira is strikingly bold and violent, but his phenomenal animation and sheer kinetic energy help set the standard for modern anime.
Yeah. Let me check this real quick. Because if you look at let me see, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Mm.
And you have probably, I mean, we don't talk much about Rotten Tomatoes. I think mainly because
We're not a review
I
boss.
always find a disparity between the tomato meter and the audience score, which is something that I talked about at the very beginning on season 1 on our episode 2 on John Carter, and how I find the huge disparity. But if you look at Akira, you notice that the tomato meter is actually 91%. And there's that famous sign there that says certified fresh by Rotten Tomatoes. And the audience score is 90%. So there are very few movies or TV shows that I can recall, they are out there, that have such a close disparity. I mean, there's basically no, from 91 to 90, there's basically no difference in there. So that has to say something about this film.
If you have a read through the cultural impact section of Akira in the wiki, there's a whole bunch of cited comments that basically say this is a watershed moment in animation, and how many different things it's influenced. Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, Matrix, Dark City, Chronicle, Looper, Dark Knight. The list just goes on and on and on. Godzilla, so many things. They reckon that they can look back at Akira and say it was influenced by Akira. So, if you were going to watch any anime that, is on the adult side, then this is the one you should check out.
Yeah, and just know, although it is light compared to others in how strong it is, which is not the intention, right? For that, you can just go and get the Legend of the Overfiend. But this film, it's not for kids.
No.
It's an anime. So you might look at it and say, oh, it's cartoons. But it's not for kids. The topics, I honestly think the shock factor for kids is not that many in the film. However, they will feel completely lost.
No, I don't think that. I mean, there's a lot of violence.
Yeah, there is. And that's what I'm saying. There's not
Even though
many.
there's
many
not
factors.
much, yeah.
But the thing is, they will feel completely lost.
Yeah.
Because the intended audience is adults because of the heavy, deep
Topic.
Yeah, the heavy topic and multiple topics, if I should say. I mean, we already talked about the dystopian setting. Another thing that this film is an influence on the genre is the technological advancements. The film
just before you go on to that, I was just going to say that when we talked about Blade Runner, and I said that I saw Blade Runner when I was 11 and I was lost, and then I watched it years later and I got it and realized what an amazing movie it was. If this movie had come out at the same time as Blade Runner and I'd watched it then, I would have been lost.
Yes.
You need to have an adult sensibility to get the depth of this movie. I mean, you can say, oh, it's animated, so it's for kids. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And the things that are covered in it, like socio-political issues, governance of large cities, corruption, social welfare, street violence, religious ferocity, and all sorts of that's before you start getting into the futuristic stuff of like orbital lasers and laser guns and psychic powers and all this sort of other stuff that's just stacked on top of it. I mean, there's a huge amount of depth in this movie as to its topics, its themes, but you need a adult or late teens mentality to be able to really understand what it's telling you and pull it all together.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that the fact that although we forgot to ask the first question that I always ask in every episode, which is how old were you, and what was the first impression that this movie made on you? I guess that's it. I would have to, before I even continue with the second bullet point that I have prepared. I think it's on point based on your conversation for me to say I was 18 when I watched this movie for the first time. 18 or 19. It's been a long month. Yeah, I want to say about 18 or 19. I love the anime. I think this anime is one of the animes responsible or why I love anime today. And I do tell there is a different uncomprehension. When I saw this movie when I was 18 versus when I grew older, because this is one of those movies that I have seen multiple times throughout my life. So I can tell you on my teens, there's a different I got something from this film completely different than when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40. And it's always something more that I could not understand before.
I would put this movie in the same bucket as Blade Runner.
Yes.
To the depth of what it's talking about and the concepts that it brings up. If you ever wanted to see a movie that was like anime Blade Runner, this is it. It's very much down the same street. It doesn't necessarily pull into the same driveway, but it's on the same street.
And just to put it in perspective, Blade Runner came out in 1982. So Blade Runner was first, then Akira. It's just that, and I like to think, in part, that this movie was influenced slightly. It is definitely a cyberpunk film, and I find it hard to believe of any cyberpunk not being influenced by Blade Runner or by its book. Or by the what was that movie again? The book, Necromancer.
Neuromancer.
Necromancer.
Yeah, that's the fantasy version.
Complete different.
Yeah, right. And then of course you go off in another street and you get Necro Hamster.
Hey, that's science fiction random for you. You know, us three hosts will bring you a different perspective. So I completely forgot where I was going with that. But the thing is, you know, the older you are, the different perspective you're gonna get from this film. And I loved it when I was 18. But I can tell you there's a lot of concepts in there that I did not quite get until I got older.
Definitely. You will have a completely different take on it as you get older, as you get to understand the depth and the subtlety. And one thing that I failed to mention when I was talking about the cultural impact is this movie inspired a wave of Japanese cyberpunk works, including manga and animated series such as Ghost in the Shell, Battle Angel Alita, Cowboy Bebop, Serial Experiments Lane, Elfen Lied. I mean, you know, big names in cyberpunk manga and anime.
Captain Chaos. Okay, so then the next, I don't know if we should move on to because I'm still curious before I move on to my next bullet point. and I think we can all have something to say in this, because I believe that it was not yesterday that Captain Chaos saw this movie, and obviously not
No, I was
yesterday
like
that.
12.
So I guess I want to hear from the youngin, because I have a feeling that the mad scientist's thoughts will be very similar to mine.
Pretty much.
So, Captain Chaos, how old were you when you saw this for the first time, and what was your first impression on this film?
About 12 years old, I think. 11, 12 years.
Wow, so you probably did not get most of the top. You probably
Oh,
were.
no.
I wonder if you were lost on the film.
Yeah.
You were lost?
I loved it, but I didn't get half of the shit. I enjoy more the animations and like the
Yes.
interactions.
The animation is amazing.
But imagine, I mean, I was watching it subtitle in Spanish.
Awesome. Yep, yeah.
So yeah.
So
But yeah, it created an impression on me.
yeah, definitely. I mean, the visuals are incredible. They're definitely incredible. Oh, and
Oh yeah, I love that image.
for all of you who are not watching us on YouTube, which very important, if you are not, go into YouTube, Science Fiction Remnant, and follow us. Because if you don't follow us, you can't make Captain Chaos butt your canvas. And we need
That's the
you.
most important thing.
We need you to make Captain Chaos butt your canvas. It's very important to us. So just head up to YouTube, search for Science Fiction Remnant, and follow us. And there's the hashtag. So what I was saying, if you're not watching us on YouTube, if you're listening on the pod, I'm going to let our resident mad scientist explain what is being displayed on the screen.
Well, basically, it's from an article. The internet is about to explode. What if Akira was a live-action movie? And it's basically a sort of a fake promotional image that somebody did up for Akira 2023, with a live actor as Kaneda. So it's pretty damn good.
Nice. Okay, so I guess we can move on to the mad scientist now. How old were you, and what was your first impression?
I'd have to say I was either late teens or early 20s. I can't remember if I first saw it in the cinema or on video, because I do remember seeing it in the cinema, but I think it might have been while I was going to university, and it wasn't the original release, because this is one of those movies that they bring back in every now and again as a sort of an international, I don't know, when they're doing international movies.
Yeah.
Akira was that influential that it was brought back into cinemas every now and again as a sort of a special screening or something like that. And I think I might have seen it then, but I think I originally saw it on video. And, you know, being that it was roughly about 8 years after I'd seen Blade Runner and completely failed to grasp most of the concepts of Blade Runner because I was only 12 at the time. I got more out of Akira, but my watching last night, I got even more out of Akira than I got originally when I watched it when I was in my late teens, early 20s. There is, like I said before, there's huge depth to the topics in this movie, and you know, it kind of looks like street punks having a fight with high-tech weaponry and Esper powers and stuff, but there's so much more going on, and it gets a bit arty near the end.
Guy's gonna bite with a pipe.
Yeah.
Not very sophisticated.
And then dumbing your way out of the police station.
Yeah. Oh my God, Canada's face was iconic. What was it?
Yeah. Stupid grin at 101.
No, and when they tell the guy that is a cop, like, yes, sir, and he's like, I'm 25 years old. He looks like he's 50.
Oh wow. So yeah, you probably saw it later in life than I did. So your first impression is definitely different than mine, Ray. So okay, so let's move on to the next topic that I have prepared. Again, we are on the influence on the genre of cyberpunk. I want to call out technologically advancements, technological advancements. The film showcased advanced technologies and cybernetics enhanced that are prevalent in this world. This includes powerful telekinetic abilities, cybernetic implants, and advanced weaponry. Akira's portrayal of technology integrated into human bodies and society helped establish the cyberpunk trope of humanity's relationship with technology and the potential consequences of its misuse, which is very, very prevalent in cyberpunk. Any comments on that?
Technology.
Where's my portable laser cannon? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
Well, you just gotta get your car battery,
Yeah.
and then that thing that you used to play with the cat, plug it to it.
Oh my god.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
I want to see that. Okay. And you know the more I go through this, and this is the reason why I actually wrote it, because I find it really, really interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see if it's something that you always known about the cyberpunk IP, I mean genre, or this is something that it's just well known, and you or just something that you're like, oh, you know, I never really thought about it, but I see your point. And that's the reason why I wrote it down, and just so I make sure I mention it on the show. The next thing, okay, I got lost there for a minute. Sorry about that. Okay, so
It's like Mr. Clip from Microsoft.
That's right. Cool Clippy.
nice. Yeah, yeah.
You need to check this out when it comes out on YouTube.
Yeah.
You got to see Cool Clippy.
We're not going to mention. You just got to go in, subscribe, and wait for this episode to come out on YouTube. Creepy. That's all I have to say. So the themes of individualism and rebellion, which is very prevalent in cyberpunk. Akira explodes.
Boom.
It kind of did, but yeah.
Yeah, it kinda did.
Akira explores themes of individualism, identity, and resistance against oppressive systems. The main character, Kaneda and Tetsuo, navigates a world controlled by corrupt government and shadowy organizations, highlighting the struggles of individual against powerful institutions, an essential element of the cyberpunk genre. Yes, almost every single, if I can I say every single cyberpunk genre has this element?
I believe so.
I think it's part of the of the actual genre, and what makes
I'll
it.
be surprised now.
The next one I have is cybernetic subculture. The film features a subculture of individuals who enhance their bodies with cybernetic technology to gain power and influence. This portrayal of a subculture existing on the fringes of society, seeking liberation and self-expression through technology, resonates with cyberpunk's exploration of counter-cultural movements and the desire for personal autonomy. Basically, I mean, even if you play that game, you've seen that in the game too. The Cyberpunk 2077, Gio?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, all this are very, very obvious on how Cyberpunk was influenced by this film.
Oh yeah. And I mean, at least in the game and in Edge Runner series, it's heavily influenced.
Well, I'm going to ask this out here. Edge runners, in particular, obviously it had some influence from this film, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the major influence from what Blade Runners got its influence from mainly is from what I like to call the Big Papa Blade Runner, which I like to think Akira took influence from. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, totally. I mean, nothing's created in a vacuum, and all of these, the aesthetics of all of these shows play on into the next generation of shows. I mean, it can't help but inspire the next show and how it's presented. And even to the point that, you jump from the original to new stuff, and then things get reimagined in re-releases or reimaginings, and it all just feeds in on itself. And even to the point with AI art at the moment, and how I got to show you this, because while you were talking, I was reading into this article, and oh my god, check this out.
Oh, nice! That is awesome.
An iconic
and I would have to mention before we continue, if you're not following on YouTube, you're missing out. Awesome. Oh my god, that's freaking awesome.
Damn.
And I'll let, so for all those people out there who are listening to the pod, I'll let the mad scientist describe what we're watching so you don't feel less lost.
But it gets better.
Oh,
there's Kaneda. And there's Tetsuo.
Yep.
Wow.
Looks awesome, man.
So he's showing us a article that he's reading where apparently someone used AI. Is that what they're claiming on the article?
Yeah. It's AI art to recreate the iconic characters that were in anime in real life, more realistic pseudo real life characters.
It is incredible. And I mean, watching this, I want a live action.
Yep.
I think, I'm joking around here, but I think there has been many attempts at making a live action of Akira. There are a lot of people out there. I believe even the people responsible for Alita are big fans. I know for a fact the director of Ghost in the Shell has actually talked about doing a live action of Akira at one point. It has never gotten any traction. I like to think not, because I haven't. All I hear is about the interest, and I haven't heard anything else after that. I honestly think people are scared because this is such an iconic film, and there's nothing else you could do that I don't think you can replicate this. You can't have the
We don't want another Cowboy Bebop disaster.
Well, but you know what I'm talking about, right? I think everybody's afraid to play with an iconic film like this. So the last point that I want to bring out before I move on to the influence, what films were influenced by this, which we kind of talked about briefly about, because there are many. There are many. I'm just going to highlight a few, right? But before we go into that, I want to talk about the visual aesthetics. Akira's visual style and artistry greatly influenced the cyberpunk aesthetics. Its vibrant neon-lit cityscapes, intricate mechanical designs, and attention to detail in depicting the human environment, the urban environment, set a benchmark for future cyberpunk works. The film's iconic motorbike chase sequence is its depiction of a chaotic and vibrant cityscape became emblematic of the cyberpunk visual language. So this is something that becomes apparent when in any other. I mean, you see it in cyberpunk edge runners. You see it basically you see it in every cyberpunk. And most of the stuff that I mentioned, I find it very hard to believe that it will not be in every single cyberpunk story ever told. Do you agree?
Yeah. The only thing that I felt is that the streets felt more populated than any indoor space on the anime. That's an observation I had.
Yeah.
Like when you look at indoor space, you have one or two people, but you don't have much movement going on. When you're outside, you have a lot of people rioting, traffic, stuff like
Mhm.
that, you know?
Yeah, but if
So
you don't
it
spend,
feels
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it feels like there's a segregation of social interaction between what's going on indoors and what's going on outside.
What about the big trucks with water cannons?
Plus, if you're not inside, you're gonna miss Canada's beautiful smiling face.
Honestly, bro, if I would have lived in a place like that on a reality like that, I would be in the mountain, Mount Fuji.
Well,
Bye.
that is actually true on every cyberpunk story. I think we love the stories, but not to the point that we want to
We
live
want to be
in
there.
them.
No, yeah. No.
Yeah.
One thing that stays across the board with all cyberpunk IPs that I've watched so far is the lack of value for human life. How easy something dies, something gets killed. Every cyberpunk that you see, death is like having a meal, you know?
Mhm.
Like there's a death every other now and then here, like normal, you know?
And if you're unfortunate, the death is the meal.
Yeah. One thing that I found curious is that every scene that there was blood was red shining, like it was trying to give a message with what blood meant
Yeah.
in this movie. Have you noticed that? Like it
Now that you point it
glared.
out, I have to mention. Are you sure you're not surprised by the fact that I like cyberpunk?
No, because you're picky, so it's like taking a high maintenance chick to the mall.
Because
I
I
won't be
mean,
surprised with
don't get
what.
me wrong. This had a happy ending. Canada was alive at the end, but
Yeah, but what about Setsuo? Nobody gives for what.
nobody cares about Tetsuo. But what I'm trying to say is, cyberpunk is dark. It's gritty. It's bloody, typically.
Yeah.
And I love the IP. I mean the genre.
Mhm.
So yeah, figure that.
One other thing, you guys not sure if you noticed, but differently than any other cyberpunk genre, you don't see here humans mechanically modified at all. You don't even
Yeah,
see prosthetics per se, which is a normal thing today.
I think it's kind of
You
weird,
notice
but it's implied. But yeah, you're right. You can't
there
really.
were no droids or anything.
Yeah, I think it's implied, but it wasn't shown. Because I mean, there has been modifications.
Because even the military it looked pretty standard and traditional,
Yeah,
you know? They were regular human soldiers. You know, there was nothing, there was not robots that people would mount. Even the military used traditional machinery, helicopters, tanks,
yeah,
hybrid trucks, but there weren't any like mechanical moving robots or like big machinery that we use for military. It stayed very, very traditional when it came to that. They were more biologically advanced if you look at it in a different
yeah,
way, right?
yeah. Which is another topic that I really like. I mean, you could have, and correct me if I'm wrong in here, but you could have a cyberpunk IP that, because typically nowadays when you look at advancements, is um, it's mechanical, implants, but I find it very hard to find cyberpunk IPs that cover the implants on a biological level. which biomachinery, which is a passion. I love reading about biomachineries and biocomputing and all this stuff. What do you think about it? I think, I don't know, mad scientists might have a lot more to say about biocomputing or biotechnology. Not sure how far you have read about that. It's definitely in its infancy.
Yeah, I mean, look, the ideas have developed a lot over the last 30 years. So, I mean, why Akira was a landmark in cyberpunk, the whole ideas of, like invasive cybernetics and biocomputing and all that sort of thing, I don't think they were quite as well developed while it was being written. So, I mean, now if you look at like Cyberpunk 2077, it's all there and it's all matured to the point where, it all is seamless and integrated and makes sense as a concept in a genre. But I think that when this movie was made, and it was made from a manga, which was over 2,000 pages, so it was a very big. I remember seeing the Takabon editions, and they were like this thick. They were like huge, monstrous things. So it's a huge story. The source material.
I mean, the movie is 2 hours, right?
Yeah, the movie's 2 hours, but I mean, it's only a snippet of the story that's in the source material. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot more going on, and it's a lot more slow burn than the movie is in the manga. But still, it all depends on the original creator and what part of what they're talking about they're focusing on. And I think for at least for the movie version, which is what we're discussing here, the focus was on the social aspects with a smattering of technology and far out sort of ESP powers. So it wasn't really focusing on day-to-day cybernetics and all those sorts of things. It's not like Cyberpunk 2020 or Shadowrun or any of those things where people are cybered up to do their thing. These are like, you've got the military, which they don't tend to spend a lot on per soldier because they want a lot of grunts. They don't want a small number of highly expensive operatives. That's more like SEALs or something, a much smaller scale. These are your basic, conscripts, your grunts. So they haven't spent a lot of money on them. And then you've got like delinquents, high school delinquents riding motorcycles. So they don't have much in the way of cyberware either. So the focus of the characters and the events don't really cover a lot of that, but it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just wasn't covered in the scope of the movie.
Yeah. So, I guess I can move to now mentioning films that had been influenced by this film. And again, I want to preface by saying that this is only a very, very, very small list. There is a long laundry list of IPs that have been influenced by this film. I just found these to be interesting enough to mention. My number one, which it's one IP that we are eventually covering on this show, is The Matrix. So the Matrix, the film trilogy, the Wachowskis, the creators of The Matrix, had been cited as saying Akira as one of their major influences. The Matrix shares similarities with Akira in terms of its cyberpunk themes, dystopian settings, and exploration of the blurred lines between reality and virtual reality. and this is something that when I wrote this small snippet, it kind of became apparent, and I want to get your thoughts on this from Tetsuo's experience, where he was doubting what he was seeing because he was seeing visions, and I want to say half of those things were not true, and the other ones were created. Well, most likely they were all created.
Was tripping balls. That's what happens when you take drugs. Don't do drugs, kids.
So, what do you think about that? I mean, I brought obviously the Wachowskis were cited by saying that they actually said one of the major influences for their story was this. But when I heard that, and they mentioned how reality and virtual reality is blurred. That's exactly what happens in the story of the Matrix, regardless of which film you're watching. And when I saw that, the first thing that light up in my head was Tetsuo's experience. What do you guys think about that? No, don't agree.
I think for me, what he was going through was more like a psychosis. He portrays perfectly what psychosis and schizophrenia can feel like.
Do
I'll tell you
we
that.
do we know there was a side effect of the biological changes on his body? I mean, whenever you have
Eh,
biological changes that are,
When I
that
pay
great,
attention to it,
huh?
if you notice, the other kids were also infusing those visions on him,
Exactly, and that's what
messing up with him.
that's exactly what I said. I mean, it's not clear. You could easily assume that the kids were doing every single one of his visions, right? It's very easy to assume that, and unless we read the book, we might never know for a fact.
I think I know the answer.
But the reason why I'm saying this is because he is also going through some biological changes big enough that I doubt that will not be affecting his brain.
Of course.
Oh, well, it's all happening in his brain, so of course your perception would change.
So then the
And if
question
you
becomes,
notice,
I'm
all
sorry?
the kids were connected together.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Uh-huh.
So it's like he's joining a collective consciousness, and that's not normal for a person. A regular Joe would not be able to understand what's happening if you join them on a collective consciousness without then going through the due process to not go crazy on the path to it.
So the question becomes is, and where it blurs is, where does his alteration, where does the alteration of his brain starts, and where does the kid's influence in his brain ends? And that's something that gets blurred in this film. It obviously they don't imply or even mention the fact that this is a product of his the changes on his brain. We do see examples of where the kids are playing with his brain, but I think he is having the worst of both because the changes that are happening to him, there's absolutely no doubt that they are affecting his brain as well.
Oh, for sure.
So,
but I mean, the shit that he starts doing is straight out of dreams and bad trips and all that sort of stuff. So you immediately go down that path. Am I tripping? Is this actually happening? Yeah. And he asks that, is this real? Is like, this is a real thing? Yeah. And I guess it's more the case of, he rather than reacting and it doing its own thing, he starts controlling it. And once he gets control over it and can go like, okay, you die, that wall goes, squish the roof and the floor and all this sort of stuff and destroy that. And when he's directing it and it does what he wants, that's more concrete to him that it's actually real and not a delusion.
Yeah.
Because he's seeing cause and effect and has some control. And that's when it starts to feel real for him.
And when he starts also losing sight of who he is, because he start acting out of his nature too. I mean,
Yeah.
killing people like nothing. You know?
Well, he had two things going wrong for him, right?
Only? I'm sure there was 99 things, wasn't there?
The first thing we already talked about.
Problem, but a bitch ain't one.
No, I think that was a problem too.
Cowrie was nice.
Yeah, she was really nice. She didn't deserve to go out the way she did. That was rough. That was really rough.
Yeah.
Hey, that was beautiful. They became one.
Yeah, not in that way. Okay.
That's a poetic way to put it.
The first one we already talked about, and how his brain is being affected biologically, as well as being played by the three kids. But we also know about this little thing called power, and how absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's the reason why I said there's two things going on for him. The fact that he's losing his mind, literally, and he's doing it while gaining power. And those are
power that he cannot really control.
Yes.
Thinks he can.
And the sad thing is, he's been warned. I mean, we see the kids multiple times telling him, you're getting this power, and you're not going to be able to control it. So it's better for you to learn soon. But at that moment, it's not that he was aware of the power that he could get. It's that he was being a punk like he normally is in a street gang, right? So he didn't want to listen to, he basically he didn't want to do what he was being told, especially by little kids.
You have to also take into account the situation in which he is. It's like there's animal that can be tamed. Now grab an animal, traumatize it, get it under stress, and try to tame it. You're not gonna be able to. And this is the process that he went through. He didn't have any point where this was introduced to him, or that he could be reasoned with, because nobody tried to reason with him. He was treated like a threat, which he was, and he acted upon nature of being suppressed.
How reasonable would you be if an M1A2 Abrams tank fired its main gun at you? It's like,
if I'm a 15-year, first off, a 15-year-old, he's a puberty, So like, if I would have been too in that stage of my life, chances are I would have acted up like that worse.
Yeah,
it's different than a fully mature human that can try to get control over his faculties to reason what's going on. But that was not his case, And on top of that, I mean, you look at it, and his whole group is just a bunch of trouble kids. So when you put all that together, that's a perfect recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Okay, so before I move on to the next one, do you guys, I don't know if you guys agree with my statement about the Matrix. I mean, obviously, it was the Wachowskis were cited as saying that this was a major influence. But can you point out any other similarities that you see between the Matrix and this film that you can recall? If not, we can move on to the next topic.
I can't just look at it and go, oh, there was that, and that. The Matrix is quite a different story. It's got different pacing, different beats, different setup, different situations. So it's not like the Matrix was copying Akira in any fashion.
Exactly.
But stylistically and sort of the vibe, they have somewhat of a similarity. The Matrix is also very gritty and violent, and things are on the edge most of the time, and Akira comes across that way as well. So I mean, I think that the Matrix. I mean, we probably discuss this more when we cover the Matrix, but I think the Matrix is a lot more similar to now what's the name of that movie? Inception.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
There's real connections between those two movies, more than obvious connections between the Matrix and Akira, but they do share a vibe, I think.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add, Captain Chaos? If not, we'll move on.
I don't think that it really resembles much of Matrix, to be honest. I think it's a whole different story, a whole different scenario.
Gio's shopping online for a motorcycle right at the moment, and he's going to join the capsules.
Hey, I have that bike in Cyberpunk.
Nice.
Nice.
You got to tweet a photo of that.
I want a screeny.
Yeah. Okay, so the next topic I wrote, and I am on the fence, right? And you'll know why in just a few minutes. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. Even before I actually talk about it. And the number 2 for me is Blade Runner 2049, which is a film that our very own mad scientist loves, and he can't live without. You know, he has posters on his room.
You're just so lucky that you're on the other side of the world right now, because I would slap you upside the head if you were in the same room.
What?
He's got a poster on the roof. Joy.
Okay, so
don't get me started. I will completely derail the podcast by slamming the shit out of 2049. Don't get me started. Don't.
Okay, moving on. Moving on. And again, we're not talking about the film. The visual aesthetics and world building of Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve, drew inspiration from Akira. The film features sprawling futuristic cities, neon-lit environments, and explores themes of identity and the impact of advanced technologies on society. Now, before you mention and give me your opinion, here's where I am divided. We know that Akira took influence from Blade Runner, and this is technically in the same world as Blade Runner. However, this film was after Akira, so it's very easy to say that the director Denis might have taken influence from both, and that's where I'm split. For some reason, I feel as bad as this film is, because believe me, there's a split on my conversations online. There's people that I want to almost say 50% of the people I talk to, they love it. 50% of the people I talk, they hate it, right? But despite that, I still feel that the major influence on Blade Runner 2049 has always been the original Blade Runner, as bad as that film could be. What is your thought on that?
Well, it's like I've sort of iterated before, so I'm basically reiterating. But nothing is created in a vacuum, and even though you've got the original in the early 80s and the sequel in the teens of the next millennium, so there's a significant gap in between, and in between lands a cute little anime called Akira. And I mean, it's a continuum. Everything affects everything else. You none of these movie makers live on an island and they've never seen any other movie before, and everything appears fully formed without any influence from anything else. You're going to be influenced by a whole bunch of things. And I wouldn't doubt that the director for 2049 was influenced at least partially by Akira, and you can see it, the crumbling cities, the dust storms, and all that sort of stuff. Very similar to the trashed original Tokyo that they're trying to regenerate after the Akira incident. And you got your big new shiny city over the water, and the same sort of thing was in 2049. You had the big shiny bits where the rich people lived, and then you had the crap where everyone else who didn't have money lived, the 99 percenters. So I mean, they're all facets of very similar storytelling, but also very similar concerns about the future and how the road that we're all traveling down right now with society and corporations and the concentration of wealth and climate change and what things are going to be like for our children and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, anything that looks into the future is going to anything that looks into the future and has any sort of believability is going to reflect these issues.
Yeah.
So they're going to seem, at least on the surface level, a bit the same.
Any thought on that, Gio? Because by the way, if you guys listening to the show have not grasped the concept yet, me and Captain Chaos are in that one half of the 50% who loves the Blade Runner 20. Well, not really love, but liked Blade Runner 2049. And Ray is in the other half of the 50% that hate that film.
Yeah, Ray's a minority here. Have you guys noticed the way the buildings and cities are made, like organisms spreading out from a core outside?
I think that's unique from the entire genre, if you think about it.
Yes, but you see it in this movie. You see in Akira, like the building on the hospital where they got formula.
I need to make a point here. I don't hate the movie. I dislike it for a number of reasons, but I still own it on Blu-ray.
Okay.
All right. So it's not like, I have a hate boner for it. Okay.
So I stand corrected, and I actually corrected myself too, because I like the movie. Gio loves the movie, and Captain and our mad scientist dislike the movie.
I have issues with the writing,
Yeah.
and some other things. Yeah.
You know,
You're watching it right now. He's got it playing in the background.
Okay.
Why isn't Akira playing?
Yeah, what's up with that?
But yeah, I found very curious the way that buildings and cities are structured in most cyberpunk genres. They are like cores that are spread outwards from the center of the city. It happens here too, when they were trying to go to the underground facility, for example, you will see like big pipes running down from the center outwards. But everything works like that in all cyberpunk genres, even in Cyberpunk 77.
I think
you see those things.
I think this is more prevalent in this film in the way that it's being displayed. And let me explain, because I mean, like you said, it is a staple of cyberpunk. But if you notice, this film, it is trying to bridge the gap between the biological and mechanical enhancements.
Yeah.
It becomes very apparent towards the end of the film when we see Tetsuo losing control, and then you have biological components as well as mechanical components growing out of him. And I think if you rewatch, I mean, if this is the first time you watch it, if you go back and rewatch from the beginning, there's hints of a biosystem throughout the film, including what you're talking about, Captain Chaos, which is the way that the cities seem to like grow out. What do you think about that, Ray? I mean, it's not something that is very, it's very apparent. It's
No, it's I wouldn't call it an aesthetic. It's more a sort of an idea blending. Is that you're blending the machine with the biological, and the biological is having an impact on the mechanical world as well. So the two are merging, and that's kind of shown with massive pipes running around the place. In a lot of cyberpunk that sort of give you the feeling of blood vessels.
Yeah,
and it's that whole sort of subconscious idea of machine and man, or machine and biological coming together. And yeah, you see that really obviously when Tetsuo starts losing control, and he creates himself a mechanical hand with his burgeoning Esper powers, and then that starts to meld with the rampant biology that breaks out from him when he's what's the correct word? Sort of like his basal sort of biological power. It's almost like rampant cancer.
Yeah.
That just goes crazy and takes over everything and combines with everything, and you get this utter melding. And of course, you're supposed to find it disturbing. And you find it no more disturbing than when it sucks up Kaneda and Kaori and kills Kaori, and Tetsuo can't stop it. And it's that sort of suggesting that if we go down this path too far and just let it run unfettered, that it will be the end of us. So it's all that sort of subtext.
Yeah.
But the city, we all say the cities grow, and no city is planned from a massive top-down sort of perspective. Cities grow haphazardly. You get construction projects that are planned, but they only work within the boundary of the four edges of the pit that they dig when they first start, building a building or what have you. And oftentimes you have like a massive new high rise next to a shitty old store that's been there since the 1800s and all that sort of thing. So it's sort of that growing haphazardly thing, but they're suggesting more of a sort of a biological angle to it, with the pipes and the roads and everything being the arteries of the city, and relating it back to biology.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next bullet point that I have here. It is something that is deep in our hearts, the three of us. It's Ghost in the Shell, the manga, the anime, and the film. So, Masamune, I'm sorry?
There's multiple animes, but
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to encapsulate it all based on their medium.
Yeah.
And there's multiple mangas. Masamune Shiro's manga series Ghost in the Shell and its subsequent adaptations, including the 1995 animated film and the 2017 live action adaptation, were heavily influenced by Akira. Both explores similar themes of technology, consciousness, and the boundaries between humans and machines. Again, on this one, I am torn. Although I do agree, I also feel Blade Runner plays a part in this one as well.
Yeah.
So I want to say the influences were not solely on Akira, but a combination of Akira and Blade Runner. What do you guys think?
Well, in here we don't have that much of an element of AI being sentient, which is a big factor that weighs on Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell IPs. We get more of that futuristic social development, but again, I feel like the whole point of like androids and AI reaching singularity is not part of this universe.
Yeah,
We deal more with experimental biological beings or humans getting out of hand, things like that, and how would that affected our future.
well, I was mainly trying to concentrate more into the themes of technology, consciousness, and the boundaries between humans and machine, mostly. Because obviously, I mean, all these IPs are going to they're basically complete different stories. Just like Ray mentioned before, they're not copying from Akira.
No, not at all.
But talking
I
about the
mean,
concepts, you know what I
tell
mean?
me how AI or machines play a role in Akira. I
No,
don't
but what
think
I'm
so.
saying is I'm not mentioning AI at all. What I'm saying is I'm only talking about the themes of technology, consciousness, and the boundaries between humans and machines. That's all I'm talking about.
Well, what you've got to take into account is that both the original manga of Akira and the original manga of Ghost in the Shell were pre-internet.
Mhm.
Right? They were around the time that Neuromancer came out. So Neuromancer and its ideas of a global information network that everybody accessed and was connected to 24/7, which we are right now, is a concept that, you know, if the creator was interested in it, they would include it, and if the creator was not interested in it, they wouldn't. Now, I haven't read the manga for Akira, and I'm kind of thinking I need to now because I want to know, but I don't know. It's a 2-hour movie and a 2,000-page manga, right? So there's a lot more in the manga than was in the movie. Now, the creators of the movie may have just left that bit out because it was more than they could fit into the story.
Mhm.
And, you know, each of these stories are different. This one's more along the lines of, you know, in this crumbling city that, you know, has its flashy points, you've got these Esper powers coming up, and they have this massive concern about, you know, these Esper powers destroying the place because it's happened once already. And you know, there's a whole lot of, you know, unhappiness in the city about the way the place is being run and the financial divisions and all that sort of thing. So it's more looking along a social aspect, a mental powers aspect, and sort of a kaiju sort of oh my god, we're all going to die kind of aspect. So that's where Akira sits in this sort of continuum of cyberpunk ideas. And it's kind of out on one wing because most of cyberpunk is the gritty technology, biological fusion with the corporations fighting each other and things going on in the shadows is what people consider is, you know, the core of cyberpunk. And Akira only touches on that in some limited places because it's gone down this other road which has, you know, Esper powers and stuff, which is not normally part of cyberpunk. So it's in the same city, but it's on a completely different street, if you get my analogy.
Yeah, I get it. Definitely get it.
So you know, it's in the red light district, whereas, you know, you're in the corporate district. So yeah, a completely different story street, but the vibe is still there. The whole cyberpunk vibe is still there. And going back to what I said before, the mangaka who created Akira may just not have been cued in on this movement towards a global information network, and so wasn't focused on it, like Neuromancer and Cyberpunk and what was the other IP we were talking about? God, gone blank.
We mentioned. I'm sorry.
What else were you comparing it to?
We mentioned Matrix, Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell. So Ghost in the Shell is very focused on the informational networks. I mean, the story wouldn't work unless there was a global information network because of all the AIs jumping around and infecting people and melding and all that sort of stuff. So it's more a story of psyche and information and the creation of new intelligences based on both biological and artificial intelligence, and it is quite a different story, but the genre, it's still part of the continuum of cyberpunk. So I don't know that the two stories are directly comparable in what they're covering.
Yeah, no,
but they still exist within the same continuum of this is our future. Our future is combining technology and the biological, and there's chances that very bad things could happen. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of comparing an Abrams tank and a Tesla. They're both cool, they're both awesome, but they both do quite different things.
Yeah,
not directly comparable, but they're still both vehicles.
Okay, so I only have 2 more to go. The next one is our very own Captain Kia's favorite thing in the world, and I am not being
OnlyFans
this time. Huh?
OnlyFans.
Aside from that, Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. The highly anticipated video game Cyberpunk 2077, developed by CD Projekt Red, was influenced by Akira's cyberpunk aesthetics and themes. The game is set in Night City, a sprawling metropolis filled with crime, corruption, and advanced technology. As a matter of fact, before you guys comment, I want to point out that during the watch party, Captain Chaos, and I guess I'll let you go first. He pointed out the first comparison, and I want to say direct comparison. Remember, Gio, when you asked me to pause the movie at the beginning? Yeah. Go ahead, and I guess you can start with that, and then tell me anything else you want to add to that.
Well, for our Cyberpunk players, if you notice, the entrance to the bar, the gang goes, looks exactly like the entrance to the afterlife, which is the bar where most deals take place in Cyberpunk, the game, and in the Edge Runner series, which is a staircase going down in a regular building. It looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I found that really interesting when he pointed it out. I wish I could play that game as much as Captain Kia's. If I had the time, I would. But I can definitely tell that because I played enough to actually tell. And until he brought it up, I would have not really pay attention. And I'm kind of curious for all of you out there listening to the show, if you can actually see the comparison. Anything else you'd like to add? Okay.
It's a great movie. I think that everybody should watch it.
And Raid, what do you think about that comment? About I'm not sure. Have you played Cyberpunk 2077? I'm not sure.
I have not, but I have watched my friend Angelus play it when he was screen sharing. So I've got some idea of how it works, but I've never actually got into it.
Okay. It's a great game. At least I appreciate it. Even when it first released, a lot of people were complaining. I don't think, and this is a conversation that me and Gio has had, for the amount of glitches that we saw, if any, did not take away from the immersion of the game, at least to us. I seen screenshots online posted, and I understand there was enough to be able to, for Sony to pull it from the PlayStation store and refund money. It was actually sad for me because I own a PS5, so I actually bought that game as soon as it came back to the store. But me and Gio really liked that game, and again, like I said before, if I had the time to play more, I would play it as much as Angelus or even Captain Chaos here.
I've been even
Angelus has played through it like
What's
10 or
what?
15 times.
Yeah, and that's one
And
of the cool.
Jealous told me that
Yeah, go ahead.
regular numbers are above 1,000 hours. I
Oh
haven't gone there.
wow!
I think I'm not even 500.
And you can understand why, because it reminds me of that. We did an episode on Detroit Becoming Human. It has a slightly, depending on what you do and how you're reacting to different things, the story progresses differently, and that's one of the things that I like. I mean, you can even start as 3 separate different, although it does join back up towards the center. It gives you the slightly different beginning, but it's always going to be a slightly different ending. What do you think about that, Gio?
Yeah, I agree with it.
Okay. So the next one, we actually did an episode on this show. And I would have to say, I had a lot of fun recording that episode. And I believe that was in season 1. I believe that very own Captain Chaos would agree with my statement when I mentioned that the episode was called Ready Player One. The novel and the film, I'm going to talk about it in my comment.
We gotta cover the second book.
Yes, we have to. So, Ernest Cline's novel and Steven Spielberg's film adaptation, Ready Player One, pays homage to Akira and its impact on the cyberpunk genre. The story takes place in a virtual reality world called the Oasis, which is heavily influenced by 80s pop culture, including Akira. And the coolest thing, just like, you have to actually go back our back catalog and download that Ready Player One episode so you can get, our full opinions on this film. But I mean, they even have a live action version of that famous iconic bike on the film, and is so freaking cool.
Oh yeah.
So, have you, Ray? Have you seen Ready Player One? I'm assuming.
Oh,
you
yeah,
have.
yeah.
Have you read the book?
I haven't read the book, no.
Okay.
Is it significantly different?
Well, like every book, it's different, but it doesn't take away from the story. As a matter of fact, it makes you appreciate its medium by itself. So and this is something weird that I noticed from someone that has read the book and see the film. Usually, you can either appreciate the film more or the book more, or you learn to hate one medium over the other, or there's slight differences. Now, this particular IP, I appreciate the book on its own as well as I appreciate the film on its own, if that makes any sense. And it's kind of weird for me to explain because it's an experience. I don't know, Gio, I don't know if you could speak to that on your personal experience.
I read both books.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much richer. It doesn't take away, like you say.
Yeah.
The books had so much more. And it touches a lot more IPs that I like. I mean, Lord of the Rings, man. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I wish I would have put that in the movie.
Yes. Oh
Rings
yes.
fighting a boss. Rings.
I do.
It's so 80s.
I do have to agree. The book was a lot darker for my taste
True.
because, and I don't want to say you guys have to kind of download the episode and listen to it or read the book, but there's some main characters that died in the book that did not die in the film.
In the movie. That's true.
So just want to put that out there. It's definitely a lot darker. However, I do appreciate its one on its own. So that actually concludes. And again, I want to say this again. Um, uh, I mean, our very own Matt Santos, towards the beginning of this episode, kind of mentioned the overwhelming, or the beginning of the overwhelming list of IPs that have been influenced by this film.
It's all covered under cultural impact in the wiki for Akira, so go have a look there.
Yes. I just wanted to point out this few ones out there because I just found those particular ones very curious. So, what? This is I'm curious about this, right? What has been your experience watching this film today that you could point out would be a contrast to the first time that you watch this film, that comes to mind, right? It's obvious that we are going to get more now with our lenses than we ever got in the past, but there should be a bigger contrast. And I don't know if I should start with Captain Chaos, which, because he was the youngest when he saw the movie for the first time, but I wanted to see what comes to mind as being the biggest contrast when you compare watching the film today versus the first time that you watch it. What do you think, Captain Chaos?
I mean, for me, it's different from heaven to earth. I didn't get 70-80% of the movie when I was a kid. You know, I was more taken by the animations and the interpersonal interaction between the characters, but not about what really was going on in the big picture. And still today, I found it a total mind job. This movie is a unsolvable puzzle,
Yeah.
mine. But I mean, this is one of those movies that doesn't matter how many times you rewatch it, you're gonna get new things out of it. That's how conglomerate is about so many things in cases.
If you can if you can point something out on the film, whatever comes to mind first, that you find surprising, that you know of by watching the film now that you never caught on the very first time, like just one thing that you can recall from watching this film. I mean,
Oh, when I was a kid, I didn't understand the whole concept of what was Akira, what was the source of the power. I had no idea. I could not make out anything out of it. You know?
Actually, me reading through the plot on the wiki cleared up a few things that I was a little sketchy on as well. So I mean, yeah, it's not all spoon fed. It doesn't spoon feed you the whole thing.
yeah. I would have to say my perspective. I was really, really attracted by this film when I watched it for the first time. Its aesthetics, the story. I was 18 when this film came out, and it was one of the films that woke up my interest, and I say one of the films because there has been others. It's a collection of all that as to why I like anime today. But the visuals, it's what actually I can point out. The fact that recalling today, I find it surprising that I can't pinpoint an anime, and I'm going to say anime because it would be easier to replicate than actually a movie or TV show. There hasn't been anything quite like even today when it comes to aesthetics. And you wonder why, because it could be done. And I'm not saying redoing Akira, because that cannot be done. I'm not talking about copying Akira, or I'm just talking about a complete different story with the same aesthetics. I think the aesthetics are beautiful. And I find it very surprising that today I would have to go back to Akira to get my fix on those aesthetics. So I guess we can move on to, and if you have any comments on that, you can go ahead and.
It does have a real 80s vibe to it, like late 80s sort of where cyberpunk was in the late 80s in anime vibe to it. If you compare it to how the OVAs for Rusty Angel, Battle Angel Alita looked, there's a lot you can draw a lot of similarities. I mean, Battle Angel Alita is completely OTT as far as the cyborg fights and stuff like that. I mean, we didn't see cyborgs in Akira per se, except for Tetsuo's arm that he created with Esper powers. There's no Esper powers in Gumu, Battle Angel Alita, so they're not directly comparable. But there's still that aesthetic that runs through it. That dystopian things are on the decline sort of vibe, at least for the majority of people. You've still got some part of the city which is new and flashy and expensive, and that's where the rich people live. But for most of the people are living in the crumbling remains of greatness. I'm just trying to get my head back to the question that you asked.
What you find basically is, if you can compare the very first time that you watched this to
yes.
So there was surprising.
Yeah, there was two things that jumped out at me in my most recent rewatch. The first one was the complete lack of Mo. Anime these days has got the big beautiful eyes and everybody's gorgeous and so forth and so on. For the most part in anime these days, and there's none of that in this. Like you said, this aesthetic is pretty much dead in anime in 2023, which is a shame, really, because
you know who still holds to these kind of aesthetics? Surprisingly, Ghibli Studio. You don't have the overly dolled up characters in Ghibli Studio.
I want to say no because of that fact, because of what you just said. But the aesthetics on Akira are next level.
It's a different universe. When you look at the character design, it's not like one character is more beautiful than the other. Like everybody, even the main characters, look normal.
Yeah.
You can look at Mononoke Hime, Totoro, Spirit Away, all of them.
I see where you're going with this. I do appreciate what you're saying. I still think it's close enough for today, because aside from that, no one has even come close. I think that would be the closest one. I would have to say, and I don't know, Ray, if you agree with me, it's like close but no cigar, right?
I can sort of see it there. Certainly Studio Ghibli and its its ideas are out there. So I mean, I can tell in my head that the scenes that Geo's comparing. It's the when the Esper kids were trying to kill Tetsuo using the giant teddy bear and giant car and stuff.
Mhm.
That's very Studio Ghibli-esque.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So that's very much a sort of a stylistic link there. But certainly there's only a few places where I think Studio Ghibli and Akira overlap. Most of it is, quite different.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find out the last time that Studio Ghibli released something.
But I do, Gio, I do agree with you on that comment, right? That's the closest thing that we are going to get. But although it's not what I'm looking for, it's close enough. And it's sad, just like our Ray mentioned, because it could be done, right? It's just a choice of not doing it. And it's just a how can I say it? It's a beautiful aesthetics, which shouldn't be coming out of my lips because it is gritty and dark, and I typically don't like those things.
It certainly is the aesthetic of Akira really hangs together, and even all this time later, you can barely fault it. I mean, it does have that late 80s, early 90s feel to it, especially with the final scenes with the water pouring through the buildings, filling up the hole from the singularity that Akira created, which chewed a chunk out of the city. But those sort of artistic, grand destruction aesthetics are very much of that time. But you don't really see that sort of thing as much anymore. I mean, if you look at something that has sort of big explosions and stuff in it, like Konosuba with Megumin's explosion magic. Have you seen the Konosuba movie when she goes for it?
Not yet. I haven't, because I saw the entire thing, and I keep on getting distracted with other anime.
By Star Trek.
Yeah.
With my cool wife, watch Star Trek.
Well, you're gonna have to get you one of those, man.
Yeah, cool wife. Don't have one of those. But anyway, so yeah, the aesthetic of the explosion magic in the Konosuba movie, it's big, but it's really bright and colorful, and that's not cyberpunk, not even a little bit. When it comes to blowing stuff up, I mean, cyberpunk has its colors in the neon, and some of the other stuff, but it's never represented in the destruction. The destruction in cyberpunk is a lot flatter than something like Konosuba. But the character designs, specifically, are far and away different from what I'm used to, having watched so much anime recently. Even anime from the last 13, 15 years, just is a complete stylistic streets away from Akira. And I'm not saying I enjoy modern anime, but I also enjoy Akira, and Akira has a place. I didn't realize until I just watched it again recently that Akira has a very special place in its stylistic choices and the way it presents itself that is different and therefore interesting, because it's not like anything you get these days.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And
but I got to say, 2049 still sucks.
Mario, what the heck happened to Captain Chaos? Is he?
He's watching 2049. He's showing off.
He's showing off. You mentioned something, and I gotta bring one of the points that I actually wrote some of the notes, which you guys should be surprised that I'm using my notes.
I'm flabbergasted.
I usually never use my notes. It's just, this is the type of movie. I mean, it's just iconic. You mentioned something when you were explaining your point that brought me to this topic. The themes of post-war Japan, they're very apparent in this film. Akira reflects the lingering impact of World War II on the Japanese society and its subsequent economy and technological advancements. It explores the theme of trauma, reconstruction, and the fear of repeating past mistakes, offering a commentary on Japan's complex relationship with its history. Um, very apparent from the beginning when you see what appears to be an explosion destroying Japan and the reconstruction of what is now called a Neo Japan and
Neo Tokyo.
Neo
they
Tokyo.
talk.
Yeah, the destruction of Tokyo and the reconstruction of what it's called as Neo Tokyo. It's very reminiscent. Well, I don't want to say reminiscent, but I recall in the visuals how it's very similar to exactly in World War II when the atomic bomb was dropped. And
There's a direct comparison between the mushroom cloud and the singularity.
yeah. So yeah, I just have to bring that up because it's something that when I watch it, it's like and again, this is 1988. It was fresher in Japanese people's mind than it is today.
Yeah.
Most of those people now today are probably long gone. But I like to think that by the time this film came out, there were still some people suffering from the effects of the bomb.
Well, they actually mention World War III, and they talk about the post-war construction boom and the positivity are over.
Yeah,
and now we've got to deal with ongoing corruption and dissent and distrust of the military and the police force and all that sort of thing.
Okay. So, for a change, I'm going to do something different on this episode. And I'm going to let Captain Chaos ask the final question.
Dun, dun,
Any final, extra final thoughts?
Who would like to go first? I can go first if you like.
Where you go?
You can go first, Roy, for a change.
Yeah, for a change. For a change. Final thoughts. This film, it's I almost find myself feeling like I am adding water to the ocean with my comments. Because this is such an iconic film. It's obvious that if you haven't seen this film yet, you should give it a chance, at least. Just know that I know a lot of people that still don't like anime and they appreciate this film for what it is. The iconic film that brought anime to the masses. This film, it's beautiful in its aesthetics. The story is, you have to kind of like stories that where you have to think, because like our very own mad scientist has mentioned previously, this film does not spoon feed you. If you watch it and rewatch it, there's always going to be something new that you can grasp from this film. This film is filled with story. I honestly think that you should give it a chance. This is a unique film that, in my personal opinion, you'll not be able to see replicated anywhere else. Which is a shame and is a surprise, as I mentioned before, because this was done in 1988 and it's something that could be done. Not sure if it's because again, I'm not talking about remaking the film because that cannot be done. But it's just, in the story and this in the aesthetics. This film, if you love cyberpunk, you deserve you deserve to watch this film, because this film, as long as Blade Runner and the very famous book that I keep on mispronouncing as necromancer, neomancer, was it? Neuromancer. They're iconic enough that they have changed the genre of cyberpunk going forward. So if you want to experience what those changes were, where cyberpunk came from, aside from obviously Blade Runner, which we already talked about in the episode that we recorded, you deserve to watch this film and see origins of what many other films have been influenced by. And what if you're watching our YouTube channel, you can actually see a video that our very own mad scientist has been playing, where they are replicating.
How many Akira slides are there? It's a lot.
Akira's famous motorcycle slide.
Even on a horse.
Yeah, even on a horse.
Cats.
So I think, in my opinion, Akira's slide has been the most replicated scene of any scene in the history of film. Would I be overstating by saying that?
I don't think so.
And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see what we're talking about. If you are not, if you're listening to the pod, just wait about a month, go into YouTube, you'll find our video, and then let us know what you think. So that is my final thought. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. That way we can leave the mad scientist brief. I think that this movie is a milestone on anime, cyberpunk, and filmography as a whole. And I think that is the most watched. And we all agree, anime not necessarily, not for kids. This movie certainly is not. But I think that is the most watched. If you like sci-fi, it's the most watched for sure. And any of our listeners haven't watched it, go and check it out. You will not regret it. Anything that this director creates is art. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Okay, so we leave the best for last.
No, you didn't. I should just say, it's good, watch it. We're done. Okay, moving on. Now, look, Akira is one of those gems that comes along once in a decade. And as both of you have alluded to, it is a must-watch. You will, if you don't watch anime, watch this and you will start to understand that anime is an amazing medium for telling stories that would cost so much in live action and probably not have the same impact. Certainly there are animes like magical girl animes which are for kids, definitely. And of course there's heaps of Western animation which is for kids. But animation doesn't mean for kids. It just means that it's not live action. It's been drawn. And you can have all sorts of drawings that are for adults. And I won't go into the details of those, but we'll just say that things that are drawn and colored and are moving are not necessarily for kids. And if you watch Akira, you will understand this, because Akira is deep and it's wide and it has so much information in there. It's awesome sci-fi. It's a tentpole of not only cyberpunk, but late 80s, early 90s anime and sci-fi. And if you haven't watched it, you are missing out. So check it out.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess this concludes this episode, so we can move on to our final segment.
The science and sci-fi.
Okay, for the science and sci-fi, we have various things that we want to mention. Who wants to go first?
Well, I've got one that it should be fairly quick to cover, but the iconic laser rifle with the battery pack that Kaneda uses to fight against Tetsuo when he's going full-on giant amoeba mode is something that stuck with me from the very first watch, and I always thought I'd love to see something like that available. Beyond laser pointer that can pop a balloon that you can buy somewhat dodgily off Amazon, but or modify yourself if you know what you're doing. But apparently the US Navy is working on a portable laser weapon to deal with drones, which should be infantry portable. Now I don't think it's in a usable state as yet, but it's something that they are working on, something that they'd like to be able to develop to a point where it's regularly usable. Of course, providing energy in a portable format to a laser weapon is the biggest problem. Lasers of any sort of destructive capacity require large amounts of power, and of course, it's much easier to build them into something larger, like a ship or something like that, or maybe an aircraft, although aircraft are pretty light. You need a pretty large aircraft to provide the power for a laser weapon. Pew pew. Very nice. But yeah, I mean, as battery technology improves, thank you, Elon Musk and Tesla, we may end up seeing something like this actually become available sometime in the next couple of decades. And of course, drones have a huge impact on the battlefield, and being able to quickly and conveniently dispose of them with some sort of energy weapon would be quite useful, I'm sure, in reducing the enemy's information gathering capabilities. Of course, it's something that would be very helpful for special forces and in general armed forces to boot. So hopefully we'll see it at some point. I mean, I prefer it used on drones than people, because that would be ouch. But I mean, people get shot at every day all around the world. It's never going to change. So, hey, if I've got to die, I'd rather die from having a hole burning me via laser than just a simple old bullet. So it'd be cooler, but you'd still be dead.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to speak about one in particular because it calls to my sci-fi loving heart. The psychic phenomena. Okay. We all have experience reading or hearing about this in many different mediums, right? Multiple chances all throughout my life I have actually heard. Again, my something that doesn't have proof really calls my attention, because it happens way too often with too many different people of all different walks of lives. So it's happening, yet we have no absolute proof. It's something that there has been research in areas like telepathy and telekinesis and precognition, but scientists want proof, just like I do want proof, right? Concisive proof. And all this research that has been done has yielded elusive evidence. So I find it interesting that this film uses the power of sci-fi. And what I call a power of sci-fi is the power of taking a topic and exploring that topic for good or bad. Just like we say, cyberpunk explores the topic of um, implants. You know, you have um, a an implant in your heart. You have an implant in your leg if you ever lose your leg. So those are obviously things that are more real. They're real life. But what I'm saying about exploring that with science fiction, it explores the fact that what happens when that goes rampant. When technology becomes so advanced or advanced enough that we can use it to replace anything that goes wrong in our body. So, on that comparison, Akira explores the concept of psychic abilities and superhuman powers. And we could see as a thought experiment what those research that has been done on this topic that has not yielded any concrete evidence or anything concrete at all, how we get to experience an experiment with what if this was a reality. And I find that, like I called it before, the power of sci-fi.
Scientific railgun.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this we're talking about also the nuclear power and the radiation. This film kind of, you know, gears towards that topic. The story of Akira is set in a post-apocalyptic Neo Tokyo, which was destroyed by a mysterious explosion triggered by psychic powers. The movie reflects the fear, and this is something that we talked about before, the consequences associated with the nuclear power and radiation, drawing from the real world experiences of the atomic bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The field of nuclear power and radiation studies includes topics such as nuclear energy generation, radiation safety, and the effects of radiation exposure on living organisms. So it's all kind of like a thought experiment. Obviously, this is more of a realistic science because obviously we have the atomic bomb as a horrible proof of a concept when it comes to nuclear power. So those are my two topics that I like to talk about. Gio, do you want to talk about one or?
No, we're good, man.
Okay.
I think that the one that I was gonna cover, we covered throughout the topic already, was the social political issues that were going on through.
Oh yeah, it's iconic in cyberpunk properties.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So anything else you want to mention before we close out?
I'm good.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being with us. One more episode. We really appreciate. And again, I like I told you in every episode, I don't get tired of this. I don't get tired of telling you thank you. We really appreciate your engagement and for you to coming to us every week to listen to us discuss our love for sci-fi that we hope is the same love you have. And I feel like definitely speak for every one of the hosts here when I say we really appreciate it. And we look forward to your engagement going forward, not only in this episode and future episodes as well. We welcome you into our Discord channel for a conversation. Reach out to us on Twitter. You could we have multiple mediums so you can reach out to us and let's talk. Let's have a conversation about sci-fi. Again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being with us, and we can't wait to have you with us on our next episode. Thank you.
Later, folks.
Bye-bye.